In this video, I'd like to raise an important question, one that humanity really needs to look at. It's one where we need to do something now before it's too late. Now, what I'm talking about is two very important questions: climate change and depopulation. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you the pros and cons of both questions and then ask you, what do you think is the greatest threat to humanity? I realise by doing this video that I'm likely to get a lot of hate. I've tried to research this as much as possible and be unbiased in giving you the evidence. Information in this video is not that is publicly obtained from Google. Now, the first part of this question is climate change. Climate change refers to the long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. These shifts may be natural, but the 1800s human activity have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas. Also, other things like large volcanic eruptions can eject small particles into the higher atmosphere. When they remain up there for 2 years, reducing the sunlight reaching the surface, and temporary dips in global temperature have indeed been measured. Following major volcanic events, changes in the energy emitted by the sun also may affect surface temperatures. Through measurements of solar output show this effect to be small on human timescales. Another important consideration is interacting global temperatures is the climate is inherently complex. Energy moves through the atmosphere and oceans in natural fluctuations. Example being El Niño events. This means we cannot expect an immediate direct relationship between any influencing factor and surface temperature. All these factors are complicating the picture. Nevertheless, it is indisputably that the global temperature has risen over the past century. I think the jury is still out on this as a result of human-produced GHGs, mainly CO2. The main evidence of rapid climate change, according to the climate lobby, is global temperatures are rising, ocean is getting warmer, the ice sheets are shrinking, glaciers are retreating, snow covered is decreasing, sea levels are rising, Arctic sea ice is declining, extreme events are increasing in frequency. One thing I find interesting, though, is that the top 10 countries who are producing these CO2s are all third world countries. Qatar, Trinidad and Tobago, Kuwait, Brunei, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, New Caledonia, Saint Marin's, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan. So flipping the switch, now look at the other side of it. The opposing view of climate change theory include scientific challenges to the theory that human activity is responsible for these changes in the climate. Some scientists and members of the general public who are skeptical about the theory of human-caused climate change have various viewpoints along a spectrum. Reject the idea that human-caused climate change exists. Others have argued that human-made climate change is occurring, but the extent to which climate is changing and the precise impact human activity is uncertain. Another group has argued that the policies aimed at addressing human climate change are misguided or counterproductive. Topics involved in the debate over the theory of human-caused climate change include nature of global warming, such as the positive and negative or the neutral effects, the extent to which human activity is responsible for global warming or changes in the climate, the scientific models used to predict future global warming, the pace at which global warming may be occurring, and the debate over the policies related to global warming and climate change. A petition was signed by 31,000 scientists saying they were not convinced about the evidence of global warming. While polls of scientists actively working in the field of climate science indicate strong general agreement that Earth is warming and human activity is a significant factor, 31,000 scientists say that there is no convincing evidence that human will cause catastrophic heating of the atmosphere. In 2009, there was a scientific consensus on climate change. They proposed three main things. When compared with pre-1800 levels, do you think that global temperatures have generally risen, fallen, or remained relatively constant? The CO2 levels have risen from 1900 there was 2 billion per year to 2021's level of 34 billion. Next question is, do you think human activity is significantly contributing factor to the changing of main temperatures globally? I think the jury is still out because the Earth is affected by many things that go through cycles, like the sun, which significantly causes the Earth to warm up or cool down. Also, it is well known that since the 1980s there have been many predictions about climate that did not come true. But tell me what you think. Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. Now we go to our next subject, which is depopulation. You might ask, well, why is this a problem? Well, on the 15th of November 2022, humanity's population eclipsed 8 billion people. This is a moment to stop, reflect, and take action. We have more than 8 billion opportunities to address the most pressing, fundamental threats to global stability where it matters most, in human hearts and minds, as we inspire entire communities to recognise the social and environmental power of prioritising health, education, equality for all. The amount of people born per 1,000 people. Birth rate in 1950 was 37 people born per 1,000. In 2020, that had dropped to 17 people per 1,000, a difference of 20 people per 1,000. Now, when you extrapolate that over the entire world, that works out to be a lot of people. The next 20 years, that birth rate may drop as low as 15 or maybe even 10. The birth rate asteroid is heading our way. It cannot and should not be ignored. While it may seem to be callous at first glance, the impact will reverberate throughout all of society. When the world locked down in March 2020, plenty of commentators slyly suggested there'd be a baby boom 9 months later. Not only did it not happen, it turned out the global pandemic isn't quite as romantic as a blizzard. But recent released data from the Centre of Disease Control confirms that the US birth rate is on a unyielding decline. Lack of birth poses an enormous national threat to the nation, but it also opens the door to new transpartisanism coalition centred on family flourishing. It's fairly easy for those on the left to dismiss falling fertility as no big deal. After all, the line of thinking goes, the earth is overheating as it is. People consume carbon, and so wouldn't fewer people help combat climate change? To say nothing of the fact we do a terrible job caring for all the people we already have. Yet this is ultimately iceberg thinking. What you perceive on the surface changes mightily when you look deeper. The strain of longer lives, fertility leading to fewer workers and more retirees, threatens to upend how society are organised around the notion that a surplus of young people will drive economies and help pay for the old. It may also require reconstruction of family and nation. This is truly not a partisan or uniquely American problem. Joe Waters of Kappa has noted that dramatic population changes were permanent in the Global Trends report from the state's National Intelligence Council. The US will, however, have to reckon with what is coming. Rate declines are happening across the world, including most family-friendly nations, including Finland and Norway. The broader expansion seems to deserve the consolation of irreversible factors. The forced to orient around older care is ill-positioned to make transformative changes to combat this change or to ensure that young families have the support they need. On a level of raw policies, low birth rates lead to a more older population. The elderly vote at the far higher rates than youth, and their policy preferences are far different. For instance, those who are baby boomers or older are less likely to be concerned about more progressive policies. Many people believe that the external population growth not only is happening, but is designed to continue. Not only is this untrue, it simply cannot be true. Who can we blame? Fueled by Paul Ehrlich's book, The Population Bomb, they were inundated throughout the 70s and 80s with prediction of overpopulation, mass famine, and a humanitarian crisis. Yet agricultural innovation and the Green Revolution mean that such dire predictions did not come true. In fact, we look at the reconstruction of historical data on famine deaths, which can be done in detail only to around 1860, we see that famine deaths have been at their lowest levels post-1970, quite what everyone was expecting. The idea of uncontrolled population growth nevertheless lives on. Many people believe that the exponential population growth is not only happening but is defined to continue. Not only is this untrue, it simply cannot be true. The population growth is falling steeply. It peaked a half a century ago, reaching a high of 2.1% in 1960. Since then, it's been halved, just over 1% per year. This does not mean that the population isn't growing fast. We add 82 million people every year, 140 million babies are born, and 58 million people die. But the growth is slowing, and by the end of the century, we expect the population to have leveled off at around 10.8 billion, based on the latest United Nations predictions. Population increased because we stopped children from dying. Today, women are having fewer children, and fewer of these children are dying. This is where we reach the equilibrium again, and population growth comes to an end. One thing that the study demography has taught us is that population explosions are temporary. They are finite periods of change between stable equilibriums. Will aging populations result in lower levels of consumption? Will the shrinking of young populations result in slower technological innovation? When the data point shifts, so too must the conversation. Economically, population aging generates a new challenge for many countries. It's a problem for which, after decades of fearing overpopulation, we are ill prepared. For the poorest countries, aging could be a major economic plus. Large populations will grow from children into working age adults. In present-day Nigeria, 44% of the population are younger than 15-year-old. This either creates a large number of dependents or forces young children out of school and into work. By the end of the century, the share of younger than 15 will fall to 23%, and if Nigeria and similar countries can get these populations into work, it could be an economic boom for them. Globally, we're shifting into a new equilibrium of a smaller family and older societies. What this shift of the human population curve means for environmental stability remains an open question. Will the aging populations result in lower economic output and therefore lower levels of consumption? Will the shrinking of working age populations result in lower technological innovation, a factor which will be crucial in decoupling prosperity from environmental degradation? Or will be emergence of large work-age populations in Africa and Asia will shift the source of this technology advancement? These are questions that have to be masked by concerted fears over population. When the data points shift, so too must the conversation. Population decline, as known as depopulation, is a reduction over time in the number of individuals living in a particular country, town, or geographic area. Population decline can be caused by a combination of many possible trends, including aging, birth rates, fertility rates, below population replacement, high infant mortality rates due to undeveloped healthcare systems, high death rates due to war or violence or other catastrophes. So now that you've heard the evidence about both catastrophes, what's your thoughts? Drop me a line about what you think, and I will be letting people know in my next video what the outcome. If people think that climate's more of a danger or depopulation. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. My name's Philip Gale and this is Morning Thought Farm. Bye for now.